Hi guys, this is Wade from Wade's Orchids, and we're going to take a look at pots in this installment here. And right now what we're looking at is Paphiopedilum. Paphs in general like to be kept moist, and I almost always put them in a plastic pot. Here's a clear plastic pot. One of the things that I don't like about clear plastic pots is the fact that as this is starting to do, you tend to get algae growth on it. Now, one thing that you can do with that is you can always put it inside of another pot if you want, but that kind of defeats the purpose. Usually I know if the plant is healthy, as in the case of this, by looking at it. So the reason I do like this one is I'll show you on this that hasn't been used. It's got excellent drainage. I really like the way this pot is built, even to the point of having the surface of the bottom of the pot lifted up above the bench area so that you would get air movement in it. It's very well designed. So we're going to be taking a look at a lot of different pots here, and I guess I should take a step back and tell everybody that Baotran from Baotran's Botanicals is responsible for this, because she kind of asked me a question about, what kind of pot is good in a certain situation. A lot of this depends on what your situation is, and we all grow under different circumstances. So we started here with the paphs. That's probably the simplest of all of them that I can tell you about, because of the fact that I always put them in plastic pots because they need to have good water retention capabilities. Also, they don't really need to be cooled down or anything like that. There's circumstances that you would use other pots for, and we'll get into that in just a minute. Let me move these aside, and we'll take a look at some other things here. We'll go from paphs to, well, here's Masdevallias here. So we'll take a look at some Masdevallias. When I can, I'm trying to use plants that are in flower to show you, so we have something to look at also. But here is Masdevallia Ziegler's Love, and that's potted in a clay pot with sphagnum moss. I use good quality sphagnum moss, which means that the sphagnum moss is very large fibered, very long lengths, and usually I'll start some live moss growing on top of this to eventually cover the surface rather than have algae take it over. Because what we're trying to do here is we're trying to keep this moist and cool. So usually you think of a clay pot as drying things out. Well, it does, but what happens is when it dries things out, it also has the evaporative qualities in doing so, which cools the plant, which is really good, especially in the summertime for Masdevallias, when we need to keep them as cool as possible. So this is potted in a clay pot, and I'm pretty sure I've got some extra drainage in here. I always try to make sure that I have got close to what I call perfect drainage. In other words, that there is no way that any water would ever be laying in the bottom of the pot. So another thing that I do with Masdevallias a lot of times is I will use what's called a net pot here. And net pots are simply plastic pots that have slots going down through the side and also on the bottom. This is also potted in New Zealand sphagnum moss. This is a little thing called Maui Holiday, which is a bit more warmth tolerant than a lot of your Masdevallias. It's also very free flowering. And still, what I do with this is I try to keep this where there's a good amount of air movement, and also where things might stay a little bit on the cooler side and a bit more shaded. Okay, so there's some Masdevallias. Now, to show you something also that's very similar to the way that I'm doing this Ziegler's Love here, I'd like to show you, this is a Dendrobium, and this is a Dendrobium bicolosum here. And it's grown in exactly the same way as this Masdevallia is, even though this is not a cool growing plant per se. It's probably intermediate to warm, actually. So you might wonder, why am I growing it in the same way as a Masdevallia that likes to be kept cool? And then I'm using a clay pot for cool reasons. Well, also the clay pot, as you get a larger pot, you need to find a way, especially with something like this, which likes to be kept a bit moist. If I would use a plastic pot and sphagnum moss for this, it would be sopping wet. What happens by using the clay pot is it will evaporate the excess moisture, and since the sphagnum evenly distributes moisture throughout the entirety of its root ball there, that means that there will not be an excess of moisture within here. So by using the clay pot, we prevent it from getting too soggy. Okay, so these are just my thoughts on how I'm doing things. This is another little Dendrobium. It's being grown in a pot which has been around, this pot style has been around for a long, long time. It's called a Rand's air cone pot. And the reason why, I'll get this up close here, and you can see there's a little cone going up through the middle of this. I'll show you another one here. This is a little larger pot, and you can see from looking at it here that it goes up about 1/3 of the way into the where the root ball would be, and that helps to keep excess moisture from staying in the middle of the pot. This was developed by Ray Rand, and Ray did a lot of Paphiopedilum, so this became very popular in Paphiopedilums. It's also a good pot for other things. Very, very well designed, kind of expensive, but it does the purpose. So that's available in different sizes. One thing that I emphasize always is that we have good drainage in whatever we use. Okay, we'll go on here and look at a large Cattleya, and this is also in a clay pot, and you can see what we did with this is the pot is very squatty. Okay, this is about, I'd say, at least an 8-inch pot, may even be larger, but the pot is very short or shallow or squatty, whatever you want to call it, and also it has got these slots that are formed into the pot. There's 4 slots, along with having a nice size hole in the bottom for drainage. So that helps to keep excess moisture from developing. Lots of different attempts to control to have things, the level of moisture even on the root ball. And that's one thing that we do need to do when growing orchids. So I'm going to put this down, and we'll look at a couple more clay pots here. This is an old friend of ours, Potanera Hoku Gem. And this is something that, an Encyclia that some of you may have heard of, called Serena O'Neill. And both of these are growing in clay pots for the same reason. This Serena O'Neill is an Encyclia, and Potanarahoku gem is strongly influenced by its Brassavola nodosa grandparent. Both of these need to have good drainage. So what I have done here is I have used a coarse potting mixture in a clay pot with good drainage material in the bottom of the pot to help make sure that I won't be overwatering this. Most of us will tend to overwater rather than underwater. And it's a lot easier to water more than to water less. It's just the way the human psyche goes with most of us. So doing something like this means that that there's virtually no way that I can overwater this. I watered this today, and I can feel just a little bit of moisture in it. It's going to be almost dry by tomorrow, and by the next day it will need watered again. Even if I would water it tomorrow, it wouldn't hurt it. So that's something that I try to go by. Now, if you are somebody that only waters once a week, you would not want to pot something up like this, because something like this needs to be watered at least 2 or 3 times a week. So if you are only watering once a week, you probably want to try to stay more with a plastic pot that will allow you to retain water for a longer period of time. The reason I like to go with something like this is because things are much less critical when you're watering more often. And what I mean by that is if I have to water this for good culture every 2 days, that means that if I water it every day, I probably still won't drown the plant. But if something is designed to be watered once a week, and you water it twice a week, or if it has a really dreary period of time, it can be really soggy, and it can start to rot from that. So that's what I'm trying to prevent from happening here. So we'll go along, and we'll go from the Cattleya and Encyclia to something that is even more demanding as far as having some air movement around it. And I have here a couple of smaller Vandaceous things. This one here is Ascocentrum christiansonianum. Nice little thing, just finishing its flowering. This is the first time it's ever bloomed. And this one here is a little Ascophoenicia hybrid, or I guess it's Darwinera. And curiously enough, one of the parents is the Ascocentrum here. So they both need about the same type of conditions. I grow them right next to each other, and they need to be dry fairly quickly. This has some sphagnum moss in it, but sphagnum moss in a little net pot like this dries very, very quickly. It's nearly impossible to keep it wet at all. So they both, even though this is in lava rock, and that's got, I think it's a combination of the synthetic wine corks and a little bit of fir bark and a little bit of sphagnum moss. They both grow right next to each other. I water them both the same way, and they're both very happy. So that's a couple of different ways to grow these little things. Now there's even other ways to go about dealing with things that like to dry out quickly. And for that, I would like to show you this little guy here. This is Tolumnia. And this particular one is Tolumnia redberry. I have it mounted on a piece of cork, and I'm going to hold this up pretty close here so you can get a good look at the roots on it. The roots are really adhering very closely to the cork bark. I find that cork is the best bark that you can use. It's expensive, but there's nothing better. And I find that this is the best way to grow Tolumnias. The main reason is because Tolumnias have air moving around their roots. They like to have constant air movement all the time. These grow, or at least the ancestors of these, grow in the Caribbean on the windward side of the island, and there is always the trade wind coming in, and it doesn't matter if they get a deluge of rain. Within a half an hour of it being done raining, the sun is out, the wind has come up, and they're dry again. They've been, the species grow sometimes as what they call a stick epiphyte, or even on top of cacti. So they really like to be watered and then dry almost immediately. And doing this with I just have a little bit of sphagnum moss in here to help get the plant started when I mount it. And this is the best way that I have found to grow these, which can be problematic for some people. So it's a real nice thing. And one or two other things to show you here. There's been a couple of newer genre that people have been working with. One is the Catasetum and I. This is a Fred Clark error right here, and it's just starting to take off. And when these things do take off, you got to stand back, because they are huge, huge feeders, and they grow incredible bulbs, as you can see here, in just a period of a few months. And then the plant goes dormant and then flowers. And so what I do is I actually grow these in plastic pots with sphagnum moss, and see if I can pull this out of here. I think I might be able to, if I do it carefully. Okay, there we go. And also in here I've got some lava rock. I don't know if you can see it because it's black lava rock in a black pot. But that way we ensure our perfect drainage, and we also have the capability of retaining a lot of moisture. And I also have a little bit of bark in here to help keep, when I water, to keep the movement of the water going down into the moss. Sometimes if the moss gets too dry, it doesn't absorb water very well. So that's how I grow these guys. Now, needless to say, when they are not in active growth, you aren't watering them at all. Matter of fact, a friend of mine, Brittany, did a video where she just takes them out of the pot and cuts off most of the roots in the potting media and sits them aside. So that's how we grow that. And lastly here, I'd like to show you a couple of Bulbophyllums. This is Bulbophyllum umbellatum, and it's towards the end of its flowering period, but you can still see it in flower. And here is another Bulbophyllum. This is Bulbophyllum vechianum, variety adorable, and they are both grown with sphagnum moss here. However, this one is mounted, and if you look really close here, you can see some blue. Okay, that blue is from the 2-inch piece of styrofoam that this is all wrapped around. What you need is a good amount of fishing line, and just start wrapping the sphagnum moss around the styrofoam with the fishing line. You can trim the styrofoam to make it more round if you want, however. And then after you get the sphagnum on, then you can use the fishing line to help you secure the plant to the mount. And that's what's been done in this case, and it's doing really well. I see lots of new roots coming out, going into the sphagnum. Seems to be a real happy plant. And here's another way to grow Bulbophyllums. This is in a large, they call this a Vanda basket, but it's just a larger form of a net pot. And I've got a little bit of drainage in here with some artificial wine corks, and it seems to be very happy. The Bulbophyllums, some of them can take an incredible amount of moisture. You have to just get used to them. Some of them like to be drier than others. One thing about them is that they do like to be almost universally intermediate to warm and moist and very high humidity. They really like having 70% or higher humidity. Now, something else that you could do rather than a plastic basket like this is you could also put these into what I call a teak basket or the traditional Vanda basket. I would put some lava rock in the bottom and then start with some sphagnum moss and put the plant in, fill around with some more sphagnum moss, snugging it in there. The sphagnum moss can be compacted, but I don't make it real compact, just enough so that that it will keep the plant in place. And after a while, the roots will, the new roots that come out will grab a hold of the sphagnum moss and the basket and hold everything together real nice, and you'll be in good shape. So I hope this has helped you with deciding what to use, and maybe you'll be able to try some new things. That's one of the things with growing orchids. It's always good to experiment when you can. If you have an extra division of a plant, try growing it a little bit differently. See how it works. You might find something that works actually better for you than what you're doing. So this is Wade from Wade's Orchids. I hope you like this. See you next time. Bye-bye.